This is the new Ford Puma Gen-E, a brand new fully electric version of Britain's best-selling car. In this review, I'll tell you what it's like to drive, how big the boot is, how much it costs, and why it's even more cramped in the back than the regular petrol Puma. I'll also tell you how this stacks up against both its electric car rivals from other brands and also its hugely successful petrol sibling. But let's start with a bit of background on the Puma, because this is a car we've given a lot of love to over the years. In fact, we voted it our overall car of the year back in 2020 because compared with its rivals at the time, it was great fun to drive, it had an enormous boot, and it was pretty well priced. That price has crept up over the years, but there have also been some updates. So last year, the Puma was given a new infotainment system, a revised interior, and also some pretty minor styling tweaks on the outside. And now there is this fully electric Gen-E version. Visually, it is very obviously still a Puma, but there are some easy ways to tell it apart from the petrol versions. The most obvious of which is this blanked out front grille here and redesigned front bumper. That's to improve aerodynamics. Round at the back, there is also a longer rear spoiler, again to help the car slip through the air a little bit better. And the text on the back of the car that spells out the word Puma is white rather than black. If you come around to the side, you will see one of two alloy wheel designs, both of which are specific to the Gen-E. If you go for entry-level select trim, which is what this car is, you will get these 17-inch wheels and you'll get 18-inch rims if you upgrade to the range-topping premium. Now, most of the paint colours, including this fantastic red, are the same as they are on the regular petrol Puma. But there is one exception, and that is appropriately called electric yellow. But this is an electric car, of course, so you're going to want to know how far it can go and how long it takes to charge up again. Well, there is only one battery. It has a usable capacity of 43.6 kilowatt hours, and the official range of this select version is 234 miles. It drops slightly to 226 miles if you go for the premium because of those bigger alloy wheels. Now, that isn't a terrible range, and it will be plenty for most buyers, but it is worth pointing out that on paper, both a Jeep Avenger and a Renault 4 can do a few more miles on a charge, as can the Kia EV3, although that is a much more expensive car, as I'll explain later on. Later on, I'll also give you a good idea of the range and the efficiency you can expect from the Puma Gen-E in real-world driving. Charging isn't spectacularly fast, but the Puma can accept a peak rate of 100 kilowatts, which is exactly the same as a Jeep Avenger and a Renault 4. And because this can sustain a relatively high rate of charge for quite a long time, that means a 10 to 80% top up can take as little as 23 minutes in ideal conditions. That is about 10 minutes quicker than in a Renault 4, although that car does have a bigger battery. Anyway, as I mentioned earlier, one of the main reasons we've always been big fans of the Puma is because of its enormous boot, and this electric version can actually carry even more luggage. Now, the main boot area up here is the same on this Gen-E as it is in the petrol version. It's under the floor here that you will find the extra space. This space under the floor here in the regular petrol version is called a mega box, and it's really useful because it isn't carpeted, so you can throw in muddy boots or perhaps even some pot plants and then pull this plug out at the bottom and hose out all the dirt again afterwards. But because in this Gen-E there's no exhaust system under the car, of course, this space is even bigger. There's an extra 67 litres of storage under there, and it's been renamed a Gigabox. We managed to fit a total of 9 carry-on suitcases under this tonneau cover, which is actually attached to the boot lid, so it moves out the way automatically. And that is 2 more cases than we fitted in a Kia EV3, which is actually a longer car, so that's really, really impressive. If you need to carry even more luggage, you can, of course, fold down these 60/40 split folding rear seats. And if you put the height adjustable boot floor into its highest setting there, then there is no step in the floor of the extended low bay and only a very little lip at the entrance here. On top of that, there's a 43-litre storage box under the bonnet, which is big enough for the charging cable, so you don't have to worry about it snaking around the main boot area here and getting tangled up with all your shopping. But while the boot is bigger, rear space is actually slightly worse than in the petrol car, and that's because the battery underneath me here has meant the floor has had to be raised up. Now, admittedly, I am 6 feet tall and this seat in front is set up for my driving position, but I almost feel as though I'm squatting on the floor. Look how high my knees are. This seat base here is serving no real purpose at all. And on top of that, my feet are clamped to the floor by the seat in front. I can barely move them at all. Knee room isn't great either. It's no worse than in the regular petrol Puma, but by class standards still not great. And although headroom is okay, when I'm slouching a bit like this, if I do try and sit upright in my seat and use the head restraint behind me, then my head just hits the ceiling. So overall, this is more cramped in the back than both a Renault 4 and a Jeep Avenger. And the Kia EV3 is technically in the same class as this too, and that feels like a limo by comparison. If you're only putting kids back here most of the time and you only need to carry tall adults occasionally, then this will be absolutely fine. But there's no doubt there are more practical options in this class when it comes to rear space. Now, you're probably assuming that in the front of the Gen-E, it's exactly the same as in the petrol version of the Puma, but there is one big difference, and that is this two-tier center console arrangement. On the petrol car, there is a gear lever, of course, and there is also a manual handbrake. But in this Gen-E, the gear selector is a stalk behind the steering wheel up here, and the parking brake is a button on the end of that stalk. So that has freed up quite a lot of space for storage. There is a tray here, and just behind that, another tray that has a wireless phone charger on it. That's the case even if you go for entry-level select trim. There are also a couple of cup holders on the top here, and underneath you will find another storage tray that's also quite big and has two USB ports in it, a USB-C and a USB-A. That's quite useful because it doesn't matter which charging lead you have. There is also further storage under this central armrest here, and the door pockets are a reasonable size too. You can fit a couple of small bottles of water there quite easily. So overall, when it comes to storage in the front, you are really well catered for. And the driving position is very good too. You don't exactly tower over your surroundings. You do feel a bit higher up in a Kia EV3, for example, but this doesn't just feel like a regular small hatchback like a Renault 5, for example. You do feel like you're in something resembling an SUV. And also, you get adjustable lumbar support as standard, even on this entry-level select version. So that is really good. Great for long distance comfort. And also there's plenty of side bolstering on these seats to hold you in place when you're going around corners. What's not so great is visibility. These windscreen pillars are at quite a shallow angle. They also come back towards me quite far into the car, so they can block your view at junctions and roundabouts. And also, for someone of my height at least, this rear view mirror creates quite a big blind spot too. The view out the back is frankly terrible, but all versions do come with rear parking sensors and a reversing camera to help out with parking, so that's not really too much of a problem. Now, the infotainment system visually looks quite impressive, doesn't it? This touchscreen measures 12.8 inches across. That's bigger than the screen in both a Renault 4 and a Jeep Avenger, and it's relatively easy to get to grips with. This operating system is not the most intuitive in the world, but after a while you get the hang of it, and you can use smartphone mirroring, which I do most of the time anyway. Our only real criticism is that sometimes it takes a while between you pressing an icon on the screen and anything actually happening, so that's not ideal. And also, during a facelift last year, the Puma lost its physical aircon controls, which we were big fans of. So now you've got these small icons at the bottom of the touchscreen for doing things like controlling the fan speed and the interior temperature. So that's not ideal, and it just means that it's a bit more fiddly than it needs to be to adjust the air conditioning when you're driving along. Now, interior quality isn't traditionally a strength of Ford, and this is certainly not the most upmarket, the plushest feeling interior that you're ever going to sit in. But there are some quite nice touches, including this faux leather here on the insides of the doors. There's some more of that on the dashboard up here. You've also got some gloss or piano black on the center console. Not everyone is a big fan of that because, of course, it picks up fingerprints quite badly, but you do find it in some premium cars like a lot of Audis, for example, so you can't really complain about it in here. There are, though, quite a few hard plastics as well on the dashboard up here, on the very tops of the doors, and also these buttons on the steering wheel do feel a little bit flimsy. So overall, this isn't a class-leading interior. An EV3 feels a bit more upmarket inside, but this is roughly on a par with a Renault 4. Now, if I had to pick my favourite thing about the regular petrol Puma, it would definitely be how much fun it is to drive. This Gen-E version weighs about 200 kilos more, so it's not quite as sharp, doesn't feel quite as light on its toes, but compared to other small electric SUVs, this is still really good fun to drive. It doesn't lean much through the corners, it grips well, and also the steering, it's nicely weighted, it's direct, And it's also accurate, so you can place this car on a country road like this with a high degree of confidence. And also, as I say, you can have a bit of fun. You won't have any complaints about performance either. This can officially do 0 to 62 in 8 seconds. That's around about the same as a Renault 4, quite a bit quicker than a Jeep Avenger. And it feels nippy when you put your foot down, especially at low speeds. But even when you're out on an open road like this, you're going to have absolutely no complaints about performance. You might do about ride comfort though, because the fairly firm suspension that helps this car handle quite well compared with other electric small SUVs means that it doesn't deal with bumps particularly well. This is a particularly poor road we're driving along at the moment, but I'm being jostled around far more than I would be in, say, a Jeep Avenger. And also, you can feel the surface of the road filtering up through the steering wheel. You can feel the graininess of the tarmac. And that's actually not a bad thing when you're in the mood and you're driving quickly, because it adds an extra layer of feedback. But when you're on a long motorway journey and you just want to get where you're going in as peaceful fashion as possible, then it is quite frustrating, especially given that there's quite a lot of road noise in this car. And also you can hear the suspension working away along any road that isn't particularly well finished. Another small criticism is the brake pedal, because although it's not grabby like it is in some electric cars, there is a dead patch at the top of the pedal that does nothing at all really. So you have to press the pedal quite far down before you start to notice your progress being slowed. And that is at odds with the rest of the controls in the car. So the steering, as I mentioned, it's quite sharp. The accelerator response is pretty snappy. So the fact that you've got this slightly vague and unresponsive brake pedal isn't ideal. I would prefer it to be a bit sharper. Now, when it comes to real-world range and efficiency, we haven't done a full detailed scientific range test on this car yet. We will be doing so in the future. But on a mix of roads so far, we've been seeing efficiency of around about 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, which is actually very good. Admittedly, it's the summer at the moment, it's June, even though it doesn't feel like it today because it's not that warm and it's pouring with rain. But based on that efficiency of 4.5 miles per kilowatt hour, then you should get a range of around 195 miles on a charge in the real world, which isn't bad at all. Of course, in the winter, or if you're tearing up and down motorways all the time, you won't get quite that far. But then again, if it's a bit warmer and you're driving mostly around town, then you might even break 200 miles. Now let's talk prices. The Puma Gen-E starts at £30,000, which is the same as a Jeep Avenger, but about £3,000 more than the cheapest Renault 4. You do get a lot of standard equipment though, including 17-inch alloys, automatic LED headlights, automatic climate control, tinted rear windows, cruise control, and even a heated windscreen. So we would stick with this entry-level select trim and perhaps add the winter pack, which brings heated front seats and a heated steering wheel, and the comfort pack. That adds an electric tailgate, heated door mirrors with puddle lamps, and keyless entry. Premium trim gets the comfort pack as standard and also adds matrix LED headlights and an upgraded Bose sound system. It also gets bigger 18-inch alloys, but it pushes up the price to £32,000, only £1,000 less than our favourite version of the Kia EV3, which is a significantly better all-rounder and has a longer range. So the Puma Gen-E isn't a class leader, but if you value fun handling and an enormous boot over spacious rear seats and a really long range, then it is worth a look, especially if you can get a good discount. At the moment, you can save around £1,500 on the price of this car, either by haggling with a Ford dealer yourself or by heading to our website, whatcar.com. Thanks for watching this review. Let us know what you think of the Puma Gen-E in the comments below. If you want to watch another video, click up there, and for our full detailed written review of the Puma Gen-E, click there.